Steve and I came from California in 1979, and we moved to New London. I called the hospital and asked them to talk to somebody from their hospice, and they weren't sure what that was, so they referred me to the VNA, and I spoke to someone there, and they didn't know what the hospice was, but they knew that there was a hostel in Hanover. And they said, "Oh, you mean hostel?" And I said, "No, hospice." And so from there, we realized that this is going to be starting from scratch, and so we have to, we started a steering committee and I did some talks in the area, Rotary and through the churches, and we gathered together nurses and doctors and social workers and people that were interested in learning about hospice. And from there, we did start education programs on hospice. I had taken death and dying classes in California for my undergraduate work, and I had had the privilege of meeting Sandal Stoddard and Kubler-Ross, and I had read their books, and I met them and was very interested in the hospice movement. The idea that we were trying to get across was the whole concept of hospice, but what we wanted to do here first is to form a volunteer hospice. We started a steering committee, and we had doctors. Some of the doctors that early on were interested in it were Dr. Kirk, Dr. Eberly, Dr. Brooks, and the clergy were very enthusiastic about the idea of hospice. And we had a wonderful steering committee that really were eager to get going, and so we did. We went out into the communities and did talks on hospice at the churches. We also provided bereavement support, and we provided the training for the volunteers. And the VNA was involved. We had lots of nurses on our steering committee and later on our board. And we wanted to clarify that we weren't a full service hospice. We were just the volunteer component of the hospice. And hospice is the real full service hospice is providing an interdisciplinary team of doctors, of nurses, of social workers, of volunteers, of spiritual leaders. All of those professionals and non-professionals come together and with the family work toward the care of the dying.
We had our little hospice of the Kearsarge Valley, and we had no fees for it because it was all volunteer organization. And at one point, a representative of the VNA came and asked us if we would like to join with them, and we said probably not. Well, we actually gave it to our board to discuss, and we said we really like the fact that it's free and totally voluntary, and they said, well, there's a little hook here, and the hook is that the VNA has to, as of some date, and I don't remember what the date was, but that the VNA would need a hospice component in order to get federal funds. And so we got back together again and said, well, I believe we can give it a try and see if it works. And it turns out that it's worked quite well. You know, the point we made was if the VNA had to start a hospice, and we had the Hospice of the Kearsarge Valley, we would be having a competition between hospices, and that didn't make any sense at all.
Thanks, Steve and Loa. Next week we'll hear how hospice became part of our Lake Sunapee Region VNA. When we return, Nina Tassi from Adventures in Learning will give us a rundown of this year's classes and how you can get involved. Stay with us now as we bring you a few words from the local businesses that haven't abandoned us during these crazy COVID times.